This is TWiT.
So we've been waiting for these Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chips to show up. I had talked about going out to New York and going through a briefing that many other people also went through, not seeing anything worrisome and seeing lots of good things. And one of the things I couldn't talk about is that they also discussed another chipset called well, yes, benchmarks, but also the Snapdragon X Plus, right?
X+.
So they promised me they were not going to pull an Intel and have too many tiers or SKUs or whatever, but actually there are going to be 4 SKUs altogether, at least at launch, 3 of the X Elite and 1 of the X Plus. The X Plus is a lower end chip, although on all the same benchmarks that they always tout. It's not all benchmarks, right? But it still comes out ahead of the Apple M3, the high end AI chipsets from Intel and AMD as well. So it has those same advantages. For PC makers, the advantage is this will be less expensive, right? Because maybe not obviously, but if it's not obvious, these things are going to target the kind of premium ultrabook part of the market, right? And we don't have anything with regards to pricing or anything like that, but I think it's fair to assume that, especially based on previous Qualcomm-based PCs, et cetera, these are all going to be north of $1,000. So maybe this one comes in a lot closer to 1,000 or even just under 1,000, depending on the device. We'll see.
So we have the world famous explaining what the name means diagram.
So this was not something they showed us. Oh, maybe it was, actually. Was it?
Snapdragon branded products are products of Qualcomm Technologies and or its subsidiaries. I'm guessing this is their slide.
Yes. Qualcomm, company of the future.
Company of the future.
So yeah. So unfortunately, poetry, design language, there's all kinds of examples of, like, if you have to explain it, maybe it's not as good as you think it is. And I would say that for this branding, it's like, yikes. So, if you're familiar with Intel or AMD chipsets, you know that there's like a naming convention they use and it's always terrible. And Qualcomm landed right in the right space for that, because this is terrible. But it's meant to describe to someone who cares about this stuff, the generation, the tier. Remember, there are 4 of those.
Elite or
SKU.
Plus.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
there's X Elite and X Plus.
Yeah. When you look at these numbers, it's very clear that it's exactly one kind of die, and these numbers are based on testing.
Oh, it's binning, you think? This is all about bins.
That was my they're not going to say that, but that was my assumption.
100%.
In other words, these things land where, like, in the sense that manufacturing chipsets is still a little bit magic, a little bit science. They're not all exactly the same. And these things are going to run it like they are stable at some frequency, and they deliver some level of performance across whatever benchmarks, and thus we will name them differently. And that was my assumption.
Snapdragon X is the series, and we know this generation 1, so that's going to be the same for everything. Snapdragon X1.
Yes, that's right.
And then there's 2 tiers, Elite or Plus.
Right. So E or P.
Right.
And Elite meaning all 12 cores work, and P meaning 10 of the 12 cores.
But that's not enough granularity, so they've added a SKU number, which obviously is completely directly correlated to the bin
so these
number.
range from 64 to 84 for this first gen. The 64 is for the Plus.
Right.
The Snapdragon X Plus and then the lowest end X Elite are almost identical. I'm struggling to remember what the difference was between them. Oh, it's the number of cores. The X Elite has 12 cores.
Right. And then it's clock
versus
speed
10.
They just benched the clock speed plus the boost speed, and
so when you go up from Plus to the lowest level Elite, you're going up 2 cores. You're going from 10 processor cores to 12. When you go up from that one to the mid-level X Elite, the difference is this dual core boost capability, right, where it can run faster for some unsustained amount of time.
All sounds like benchmark data. Like, they just bench it, and if it can do it, then you mark it up.
And then the highest end one is a higher clock speed, a higher dual core boost speed, and a higher number, or the GPU is what's the right term? Larger teraflops, or higher teraflops, I guess.
More floppage.
More floppage. And then everything else is the same.
So there was an article today.
Scores are the same. NPU.
There was an article today.
I know. Listen, I don't want to give this guy any airtime. That guy is a nut, and he does not deserve this attention.
Okay, good.
The fact that this was spread on Tech Meme and then everyone's writing about it is like, guys, come on. I just look,
I did not bookmark it because I feel like we'll see when we get them. Anything else is speculation. Right?
So just to give you a broad overview of what he's referring to, someone wrote an article that said they're lying. These are all made up. Everything they say is made up. The performance is not this good. And it's one of those things I know for a fact, you know. So here's the thing. What benchmarks are benchmarks. I mean, whatever. These devices are going to go out in the world. I've always qualified this. Like, we're going to review these things.
Yeah.
People are going to run benchmarks. They're going to compare them to each other, to Intel and AMD PCs. They're going to compare them to M whatever Max.
How soon will we be getting them, I guess, is the question.
Yep.
Because Qualcomm's making this very aggressive claim that they best the Apple M3, the latest Apple processor. So
in the benchmarks they care to mention. So for example, with the M3 in particular, the way that the Snapdragon chipsets beat it are, I think, multi-core benchmarks, whatever those are.
Okay.
Single core is very close. I think the M might actually be a little bit ahead. It doesn't beat out the M3 Max, the M3 Pro necessarily, although it's competitive.
Oh, it's the base M3 that it beats out.
It's the base M3. Just want to be clear about that. On the PC side, the x86 side, they're comparing them to different chips, different benchmarks. So it's a little screwy. But if you think about what the high end of that market is, they're always going at the high end chips though. So they're not screwing around that much. But Intel Core Ultra, which is a first gen AI PC chipset, kind of in a side family of the core, the normal core, comes in 7 and 9 variants. I now have a 9 in. I've only had 7 so far. The typical one for the Core Ultra 7 is like a 7155, I think. I don't remember the 9 model number, but the 9 is more powerful, like as we saw on the Core i chips as well. And then on the AMD side, they're comparing it to like the 7900/8900 series HS. These are HS on AMD. I'm not a hardware guy, but is sort of like what used to be H, right? On the PC side, we now have I think they're all just P now, right? The one thing in the middle, they don't do U and H or whatever the nomenclature was, whatever it was. So they are comparing it to very high-end chips, so to speak. Then again, I mean, anyone, and I had this discussion with people the day I visited Qualcomm, not people at Qualcomm, but people like me, nerds, that anyone who has used these devices that are based on the Intel Core Ultra chipsets, it's kind of underwhelming, right? Battery life has gone down. Performance is middling. We know that the NPU performance is terrible. They're promising to fix that by the end of this year. AMD is a little bit less well known because there just aren't that many chips or PCs out in the world with these things yet. But look, they're all in the mix. They're all in different places. If we're being honest with ourselves, I'm sure if you could find a real Microsoft fanatic, they would love for this thing just to kind of destroy the M3 or whatever that means. But realistically speaking, as long as it's comparable for the people that want a Windows PC, and having used this MacBook Air I've had now for 5 or 6 weeks, whatever it's been, I want a Windows PC. I got to tell you, I love this thing on so many levels, and my review is going to be glowing. But where it falls apart for me, honestly, is the macOS user experience. I just don't like it. It's inconsistent. It has some gaping holes.
And there are not enough ads in there. And I think they need... Yeah.
Disappointed.
That's actually what I meant by gaping hole. I'm glad you were able to figure that out. No, I know. Listen, it's
a matter of personal taste.
Well,
because I strongly prefer the Mac over the
Windows it's absolutely
so it's a matter of personal taste.
I just find because of there are no workarounds to some of the problems I have that I can't. There are just things I can do in Windows I can't on the Mac, and I maybe there are third-party utilities for some of this stuff. Maybe I don't know. I've tried to do things the Apple way, and I really like. I should be clear. I love some of it, or some of it's fantastic. And it's made me a full screen convert, which is kind of weird. I kind of rejected all that stuff.
No, I love that.
Era, and that's something we just don't have on the Windows side effectively. There's good and bad. I don't mean to.
We can fight it out when your review comes out.
Okay.
No, I think the main thing to point out at this point
overwhelmingly positive.
is it's one thing to say benchmarks outperform the M3, and I'll grant them that. It's another thing is
well,
how do you use it and what software are you using? And so, if you've got Windows on ARM and you don't have all the programs you want, I mean,
I don't think that
Silicon's been out for a few years. I think they've got all the stuff that's important is moved over.
That's not really the issue it used to be.
Okay, that's good to know.
But you're right. But you are right in that it's real world experience. Like it's one.
Yeah.
By the way,
that's all that really matters.
The story you referenced earlier was that.
Yeah.
Well, but this person's claim is that they're lying about the benchmarks.
Right.
It's like, guys, we're going to have everyone's going to get to run their own benchmarks on real hardware. Yeah. We're going to see what those numbers are. And by the way,
the truth
actual
will come
benchmark
out.
Numbers have leaked. Those aren't fake. Those are.
It would be pretty dumb of Qualcomm to lie on benchmarks when they're about to release a product.
You're going to get busted every time. Like, it'll be crazy. Right.
Yeah. And by the way, this is one hit away from being dead. So if they pulled that nonsense here, and then it came out that, oh my God, they lied and it's completely different.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's over, folks. It's over.
Yeah.
That would be a strategic error of epic proportions.
Yeah.
So
and for nothing. Everybody wants this chipset to exist. It just needs to be good.
Yep.
I get that you're carefully positioning it to be the best. It's not even essential.
The way PCs are today, and I include Macs in this list, is that for most people, we have our opinions about user interfaces and which system's better and all that kind of stuff. But we run apps, we get work done, we walk on it, we move on to the next thing, whatever it is. And like I said, I don't think most people are sitting there with a clock, a timer saying, this one's 1/10 of a second faster to do this, and this one's 1/10 of a second faster to do this other thing. We want to get work done. And like I said, I think the goal here is we'll see how it lands on benchmarks. We will, because everyone's going to do that. But I think the important thing is what's the real experience in real world? And we've got the years of work that Microsoft's done to improve all the compatibility and performance, yada yada. And then finally we have Qualcomm showing up on the hardware side. So it's going to come together. We're going to find out. I've yet to see anything to make me concerned, is how I would put it.
And all of YouTube will create both synthetic and actual benchmarks of various applications, various processes, and we're going to know.
And I'll tell you what our audience cares about. They're going to say, well, how do Paul and Richard feel using it? And does it, does it feel snappy? Does it do things fast? Does it do the stuff?
Does it give me a little tingle in my belly?
Yeah.
Well, by the way, you're sort of joking, but there's something to that, because honestly, there are these logical hard numbers and things like that. You can say, look, I've averaged X number of whatever hours of battery life. This is like an objective fact. It's my workload, whatever it is. But there is that kind of more emotional side to something like this that has to do with the design of the machine. Some of the appealing things about this the MacBook Air, is that it doesn't have fans, doesn't make any sound, never gets hot, never coughs, stalls, stutters, pauses. It just, whatever you want to do, it just does. I loaded up Resident Evil 4.
Dramatic machine possible, right?
It's no drama. I played this thing all the way through until I couldn't play it anymore because I played the free version. I played the first segment, whatever. And this thing, the battery life went down a little bit. The machine didn't get hot. It didn't make a peep. It was fine. And by the way, while I was doing that, I still had everything running in the background. I didn't close anything. Where it's every time I open the lid, it comes on, which I know is a ridiculous thing to say. That's how
there's a lot of laptops that don't work that way.
I have dozens of laptops here. Let me tell you something. It's a roulette wheel, and it's a roulette wheel on the same PC. I have an HP Dragonfly Pro that I love, and it is. I could give you 6 possible things that could happen when I open that lid.
Any given time,
one of which is anytime. It is unpredictable. So there are things. I think the good thing about the Mac for me was that it kind of opened my eyes to some things I had kind of taken for granted on the PC side, and it made me realize I need to watch for this stuff because this can be better. And that's the type of thing I'll be looking for on these Qualcomm-based PCs, right? The instant on promise we've always had, the 10 to 20 hours of battery life we've always been promised, the effortless, hitchless performance, the compatibility, yada, 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 all the things. So
if they really are pulling down 45 tops, I mean, that's LLM class performance. You should be able to run a pretty damn large on device language model back.
Which, by the way, I bet it does that great. But if I open Notepad and I have to wait 3 seconds for it, this
you're done.
It's dead to me. I mean it.
Well, it is always
it can't.
Remember with hyper-threading, where as soon as you had a couple of different apps running and it would start to bonk between the processors, and none of the benchmarks ever showed that. But in normal real work behavior, that interaction became a huge issue. They re-architected the CPU after that. So this is a great question: is what is the interrupt level going over to the NPU? Like, how do they shift memory on those things? Like, and until we're really doing work on it, until you're in a flow, calling between different bits of software that are a normal part of work, you're not going to find those kinds of things.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to find out. I expect to have a number of these come through the house this year, right? I mean,
this year.
I'm looking forward to your Candy Crush benchmarks. Really,
no, but really, when are we going to see these? That's my question.
Yeah, so no one has said explicitly, and I privately or publicly, but what they've said is what they've been saying. Qualcomm is mid-year, but we know Microsoft is going to announce Qualcomm-based Surface laptop or devices. Anyway, we know devices. There was a leak.
A20.
Yeah, right before build. It will probably be part of the build keynote or something as well, I would imagine, right? Just, at least mention it.
But that doesn't mean they'll give a date either. It'll just be on pre-order. We'll ship them. We're shipping them.
But we'll have some idea of what an actual machine looks like. We've seen some leaks of some Lenovo PCs as well.
I'll bet it's silver with a screen.
Yes. So one of the Lenovo, I don't know if this came up last week or it happened since, but one of the first one that leaked was like an idea pad or something like that. It's like a slim, the type of thing that would be fanless, right? The second one that leaked
yoga
was
style Lenovo.
Yeah. The second one was a more typical ThinkPad T series laptop, like a T40 or whatever S, which, used to be the slim thing before the X1 series came around.
But all those T's are tanks, right? Like
they can be, but the S is the thinner one, right? So the S one's a little thinner, but it could have full size ports. Yep. I mean, that's, it targets a business market and blah, 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 whatever. So
you can kill a small animal in times of need.
Well, okay. So according to a source I do trust, there will be 13 and 15-inch Surface laptops built on some Qualcomm X something Snapdragon, right? We know from a leak that the Surface Pro will at least be on X Plus, because that's what leaked. And we already have people like, but I wanted to get the X Elite version. It's like, you don't even know what these things are. Shut up. Let's just see what it looks like. Relax. Yeah. But I would, Surface, I mean, obviously the goal there has always been, and sometimes they have achieved fanless, right? Without any, active cooling. That's ideal.
This Studio 2 is a beautiful machine, but fanless, it is not.
Yeah. I mean, one of the tough things for me is like, since I got the MacBook Air, I've gotten 2 so far. I'm getting another one's arriving today. I get these like Core Ultra 7 or Core Ultra 9 laptops in, and they're beautiful. I mean, they're beautiful. And you turn the thing on and it's like, you're like, oh God, like
here it goes.
It's tough. Like, and I think we have a little bit of, I don't know, PTSD in the PC world with this stuff. Like we're just, get a little twitchy with it. But like I said, I just want this to be in the ballpark. It doesn't have to be better all across the board, et cetera, et cetera. But it'd be nice. I'm not going to complain if it is, but I would like a Surface laptop or similar that's just like the MacBook Air, right? But running Windows. That's what I want.
Right. Yeah, that's what you want. You want a MacBook Air that runs Windows first person.
And I know. Put down the keyboard, everybody. I know I can do that with parallels and blah, blah, blah. And I will just to try it, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to force the issue.
You'd rather not.
No. I mean, I'm going to test it. I haven't yet, by the way. I've used it on multiple Macs in the past, but for right now, I'm just, before I write the review, I just want to, or publish a review, I just want to use the Mac, right, for the Mac. So we'll get there. And I don't really,
brilliant.
The ability to run Windows and Windows apps on a Mac is obviously useful on a number of levels, but the notion that I buy a Mac and then run only Windows, like in virtualization, is yes, possible, and B, stupid. I would just not do that. But so that's my take on that. Maybe you disagree. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, one thing that, why do they have 4 SKUs, right? Like, why did this happen? other than the fact that maybe they were seeing unreliable results in the manufacturing.
And no, this is a bidding problem. They want to make sure they use 90% of the die, and making 4 SKUs does it. That's why the SKU comes out so late.
And you're right. When I look at this SKU comparison table, it's so obviously binning because this is, they're basically the same chip. It's pretty clear. And they can only run it at a certain clock speed. 100%. If it's, so that's pretty obvious.
The X Plus is interesting to me. That one, they literally have fewer cores. So in that case,
cut the cores off. They had defective cores.
Right.
Okay. Well, what they're saying is, and this was the whole Surface thing. When Microsoft took that radical step to compete with their best partners and make their own PC, there's this kind of yin yang, good bad aspect to the whole PC market where we have all this choice, and then the bad side is we have all this choice. It's like nobody knows what the hell any of this stuff means. Oh. And it's like, could we just here's an idea, just make the best one and sell that, but one of the promises of the PC market is that we have a range of not just choice, but also prices, right? So having an X Plus chipset allows them to charge the PC maker less and allows the PC maker to have a lower end product. Not that it's going to be a cheap piece of like educational plastic or anything, but maybe something that's in the $800 to $1,000 range instead of the $1,200 to $1,500 range or wherever these things may lay. We don't know.
And the performance range is not that high. I'll defy you to really know the difference between that Plus unit and the top Elite unit.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to.
How often are you using where you're just like, damn it, if only I had 12 cores, 10's not cutting.
Everybody asterisk listening to watching this podcast, and the asterisk is not literally everybody, but most people, like we all think the same way. We're like, we have to have the big one, right?
Yeah.
Like when I bought a MacBook Air, not a MacBook Pro, but when I bought it, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to max out the RAM. That's the way we think. It's kind of you can justify it. It's like a future proofing kind of a thing. You can whatever makes you sleep at night is fine, but there is a market for. Is this the good one? Yeah, I want the good one. That kind of thing. I came in the door because of the cheap one, but what I want is the
I'm interested in the price range
that are not.
Well,
but I have to say, I have had the M1 Max, the M1 Plus Max, the Mac, the M2 Mac, the M3 Max Mac.
Right.
I can't.
And you must note a dramatic difference between all this.
There.
Yes.
There is no difference. There is. I mean, I know when I so I compile my Lisp code, and it might run 50% faster. On
you went from a half a second to a quarter second.
Yeah, but it's a few milliseconds, and it's just not something you would ever notice. I mean, in other words, you can notice it if you're looking at granular numbers, but you're not noticing it when your fingers are on the keys. You really aren't,
Yeah.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.